Hey up everybody and welcome back. Right now you may notice over this and the next couple of videos a few continuity issues because it's been a confusing sort of week. This, as you have seen from the title, is part 10, wheels. But part 8 and 9 I actually managed to do. It went along so quickly, I did it in a couple of days. So I posted part 8 and then the next day I was starting to do part 10. So I did an introduction for it. Then, as you will see from the video, things went a bit awry with the wheels. So the next thing, I had to start what were going to be part 11, which was the carburetors. So I thought, right, the introduction for part 10 doesn't make sense now, so I redid it and did an introduction for part 11, if you're still following me. Then I solved the wheel issues, as you will see, as I say. So we went back to part 10 being part 10, and in the meantime, it takes so long, part 9 had come out, so we were back in order. That's it, I think. So anyway, for the third time, I'm redoing this beginning, which is fine because I've added a little bit about the tube bender. You write on that drawing and I'll be really annoyed. So anyway, as I say, we're doing wheels. Now also, because of these strange backwards and forwards, I think we're almost at 5,000. And that's bollock off. So, are you allowed to say bollock? Oh! Anyway, where was I? So let's get on and you can watch the debacle of the wheels. I spoke to the people at JD Squared, and in fact the chap that owns it and runs it is the original designer of these things, so when you talk to their technical people you really do get the right thing. So you may remember that one of the things I mentioned when I was doing the 1-inch tube was there was a tremendous, don't pull that, there was a tremendous amount of spring back. I'd get it round to say 30 degrees and as soon as I let up on the handle it'd come right back, more than with the 3/4 inch. And that's when it started to come out of here, because that holds the tube in, it started to come out of here and flatten. Well, that apparently is the problem. This is a Model 3. Now I don't want this to sound like an advert, alright? So this is just what I found out. This is the Model 3. It's sort of the base model. And it's the first one he designed. The next one up I think is the Model 32 and it's beefier and all the rest of it. But they were telling me that when this was designed, they weren't thinking in terms of the sort of thin wall chrome moly or people using large diameter tubes. So what happens is, you're pulling it up and when it springs back so far that the tube can sort of lift out of here, and when it grips again in between there and this follower, can you see that? Yeah, this follower, it sort of springs out and it's not holding it in the two halves of the curve. So that's why it can move and why it can flatten and all the rest of it. Apparently the later model takes this into account. But what they did was, very nicely, actually they even took the trouble to watch the video so they could see the tubing, was they sent me this. A nice technical drawing of a fix, an upgrade if you like. And what we're going to do, or what I'm going to do, is on the back of the shoe, I'm going to put a block with a 3/4 bolt in that is going to press against the pin in number 7 hole. So when I've got the tube in and got this up to there and everything's right, I'll screw my bolt out so it's pressed to there, and then this can't, because it's when that springs back the tubing's pushing that out, and that's why it's deforming in this part of the machine. So it's not going to be able to come backwards, it's going to hold it right there, it's going to hold the tube in the right place, and everything will be hunky-dory. Alright? So that's it. I just thought I'd tell you that in case any of you were still wondering what had happened and were maybe thinking of getting one of these and thought, uh-oh, that's not so good. But anyway, when I've made the fix, we'll try a piece of 1-inch tube in there and make sure that it works, and we'll come back to that. Alright, wheels. Now then, here's the front wheel. So as I say, if you're going to do this yourself, there are certain things you need to know. And also, if you're going to take your wheel, if you take your wheel with, say, new spokes to a wheel builder, it's fine. But if you strip the spokes out to, say, paint the hub, or you want to have a new rim put on it, what have you, so you're just going to turn it with the bits. Unless the wheel builder's got a really big database of wheels, if you just turn it with a rim, spokes and hub, he's not going to be very happy. Because there are certain things. As I say, I won't go into great detail. If you're really interested, watch the other videos, because I explain everything. So what you need to know are basically, I think, 3 things. Might be like the Spanish Inquisition, might be 4 things. Right. What you need to know is where the wheel is in relation to the hub. Now, a lot of times it's just centered on the hub, but sometimes it isn't, particularly with rear wheels. They're offset slightly from the center line. And the way you find out is, again, you want a good datum. And the brake drum is the best one because it's nice and wide. You can put a straight edge across it and it doesn't wobble like it might do on this side. See how small that is to put the straight edge across? You could wobble on that. So what you do is you put the straight edge across, and then you measure from there to the edge of the rim. That is the offset. Now if you're using the same rim, that's fine. If you're not using the same rim, what I would also do is measure the width of this rim, because if the rims are slightly different widths, then obviously the relationship between here and the center line is going to be different. So that's the first thing he's going to want to know. The second thing he's going to want to know is how many spokes cross. Right, so here's one spoke, it crosses this one, it crosses that one, so this crosses 2 spokes. The other thing he's going to want to know is which direction the spokes go. Let me just look in the viewfinder and make sure we're still right. I'm going to move you up a bit. Excuse me. Okay, that's better. Now you'll notice with this hub, actually they're all inner spokes, so let's go around to this side. It's like the Triumph hubs that have they don't have necks to the spokes, they're just straight spokes. But here you'll see we've got an inner spoke and an outer spoke. And on this side, the inner spokes go to the left, the outer spokes go to the right. So you need to know that. What you would also need to know is the relationship as well between the 2 sets of spokes. So, as we mentioned there, the inners go to the left. So here, if we say that this is an inner going to the left, it is, there it is, it's to the right of this one. See, that one is there, this one is here. No, it's not, there it is, but it's still to the right of it. They can either be to the right of or to the left. You just need to know that relationship. Particularly, by the way, if you're doing one of the small, the 6-inch conical hubs from the BSAs with a 21-inch rim, if you don't get that little relationship right, if you're one hole out when you put the spokes in, you'll never ever build the wheel, as I discovered to my chagrin at one point. Alright, so what I'm going to do now, I always make little drawings and stuff. I'm going to take those measurements, I'm going to make a little drawing of which way the spokes go. You modern types could take a photograph with your phone or whatever, and then I'm going to take the spokes out. Actually, these front spokes are in a lot better condition than the back ones, and we will spoke it up. I'm going to sandblast the hub and paint it silver. That's as much as I'm saying, silver. So I'll take the bearings out so I can bead blast it nice and easily, and we'll get that cleaned up, and then we'll move on to the back wheel. So there's the front wheel dismantled and the hub and the rim and everything cleaned up. As I say, I'm going to paint these, so I'm going to take that arm off and we'll polish that up a bit. The rim's straight, it's fine. Like the Enfield one, it's got a coat of paint on it, so occasionally you can see, I don't know, not that often actually. It's cosmetically, it's not there, you can see some scratches through it. Cosmetically, as I say, it's not perfect, but these rims are so expensive. See, there we go, it's nice and straight. You know, I'm not going to end up paying whatever it was, $700 a wheel like I did with the Enfield. This is more of a project bike. So hub will be painted and everything. I have got new stainless steel spokes. So let's have a look at the back wheel. Now this we'll look at a little bit more carefully because I've got more to do. First thing I'm going to do is take the sprocket off, and they're through bolts on this. They're not tapped. So I'll take the sprocket off and then we'll take the spokes out. Funny enough, all the spokes came out reasonably easily on the other one, but as I say, these are much rustier. I might just cut these out. So let me take the sprocket off and take the spokes out so that we're down, and obviously the rim will just get cleaned up. Then we're going to put this in the lathe. We'll hold it on the brake drum and we're going to turn 1/4 of an inch off the mount in here to bring the sprocket in so that it's going to be right with the rim and therefore with the center, so that when the chain line's right, the wheel's going to be in the center of the frame. So let me start taking this apart. I set this up in the lathe. I mentioned the spokes were in poorer condition in the back. I actually had to cut them out. The nipples were really seized on. I wasn't going to waste time doing that. So we set it up. The jaws are actually holding the center of this. I've still got the bearings in, so I've got the center in there, and we're within a couple of thou. There's some little bits of paint and stuff on that face. So we're all ready to face it off. But I've been looking at this and I don't know if I want to take a full 1/4 inch off there. That's quite a lot. So I think what I'm going to do, well, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to take 1/8 off there. Now you remember I needed to take 1/4 off to bring the sprocket in with the wheel laced up exactly as it was. So I took a measurement from here. So I know how far the rim is going to be from this face. So if I only take 1/8 off there instead of 1/4, I need to move this over 1/8. So I'll just add 1/8 onto there. I'm pretty sure I can take up 1/8 all right, just in the lacing up and truing of the wheel. So let me face off this 1/8 inch and then I'll bead blast this and we'll see about building the wheel up. There, I've taken the 1/8 of an inch off this face, cleaned those up, and there's our sprocket nicely on there. So I feel a bit better about that. It probably would have been alright. There's a lot of meat there, but I don't know. Anyway, let's take the bearings out. Right, bearings. Now they've got the same front and rear, so I'll just do the one hub. So the first thing we've got on this side is a circlip. Okay, so that's our circlip. Now then, in here there's a tube like that between the inner races. Going back to what we've done so many times, we're keeping the pressure on the inner race. The wheel spindle goes through, so you have swinging arm, you have nut, swinging arm, then whatever's here, then pressing on the bearing, then pressing on that, then that presses on the inner race and all the way through to the other side of the swinging arm. So that holds that inner race still and the wheel spins on that. So there's going to be another one of these in there, and you'll notice it's got this little thing on. That's to sort of hold it right, but then you could just kink it over a little bit so that you can get something down inside and just catch the edge of the bearing. So let's see if we can cock this over. bearing is easier to get an edge to. Just when they're in nice and tight, there it goes. This is sometimes difficult to cock over. It's easy to cock up, but it's difficult to cock over. You go down and you see if we can just, I can see an edge here, so let's see if we can just loosen that bottom bearing, because once you take the pressure off that piece of tube, of course, and there's a little gap, you're able to kink it over a bit. So it's moving a bit easier, so let me Okay, so that's catching on the bearing now, because if I move over a little bit, it'll go further down. So that's the lip of the bearing. And just keep doing this. Some bearings are easier than others. Some tubes cock over more than others to give you a little bit more of an edge to get on. It's strange, isn't it? The one you choose to show on video is always the one that won't come out. The other one just popped out. Of course, these bearings have been in here since what, 1979 probably. I don't know if you can see there's rust on the outer. These probably, let me see if, let me give these a squirt and then we'll leave it a couple of minutes. Right, I've just been having a rummage around, Seeing as this one's being so awkward, I found a little piece of stock that is just going to catch on there, so it'll give it more of an area to bump against. And there it goes. See the bearing coming out? Ah, then. One thing always to watch out for, hold on a second. And believe me, I've done this in the past, is you get so tied up with what you're doing, you don't realise that you've pushed the bearing through equal to that. So you're banging away and the bearing is actually on there. So give yourself enough room to actually drive the bearing out. And in fact, that's why we couldn't get at the tube. Look at that, there's two bearings in that side. And this one should just pop out. This one's well stuck in as well. There, by the way, can you see that? Yep. There's the tube from the centre. I get messy. Let me find another piece of bigger stock to fit on that, and then I'll knock that out. Right, I found a bit of tube that just fits in nicely. And there's our bearing out of that side. Alright, off to the bead blaster. Now there are the hubs and the brake plates all painted up. Now also, when I got down to it, that silvery coloured coating on the back rim was pretty poor. So what I decided to do was polish it. Again, another job that, well, I'll just polish it. The grey / silver coating is pretty hard. I don't know whether it's I don't think it's an anodised coating. No, it can't be. So just glass bead would have taken forever. As it was, to do the two front and rear rims, it took me all day, and I was as black as the ace of spades when I finished. But what I had to do was use a harsh abrasive in the blaster. Here it's called black diamond. It's like ground up slag, I think, something similar anyway, to get the coating off. And then I changed over to glass bead to sort of peen and smooth out the surface, because with the black diamond it's a great finish for paint, but it's too rough to polish up. So after I glass beaded it, then I had to use a couple of different grades of polish on the polishing wheel, and eventually some sort of cream, and they came up nice and shiny. So I have the rims done, I have the hubs done, I can set to and lace up the wheels. Now I won't show you doing that because I've already done it in a couple of other videos, and if you're really interested, I think I've already mentioned this, but anyway, go back to the BM250, the BSA trials bike, and there are 2 videos which go through the whole thing. Okay, so let me set to and spoke these up, and then we'll look at tyres and things. Right, well, I've just had a very frustrating weekend. As you know, because you're watching this video, we're doing the wheels. Well, I got to the point where I take the spokes out, and this is the very first time it's ever happened with Buchanan spokes. I went to the front wheel first, and you may remember I was able to actually dismantle that wheel The spokes I got from Buchanan's are nearly an inch longer than the spokes I took out the wheel. So I thought, okay, I'll phone them on Monday, because this was Saturday. I'll get on with the back wheel. Well, the back wheel, I'd cut the spokes out. I don't know what happened with the back. After I'd told you about making a drawing and everything, I forgot to make a drawing. And I just cut the spokes out and threw them away. So anyway, I set to, I spent all day Saturday, and you can see, I think you can see here, I just could not get it to lace up the back wheel. Really frustrating. So Sunday, I'd found a couple of pictures on the internet that showed me the spoke pattern. I came out, I tried again, I still couldn't lace it up. So I phoned a friend of mine, Dick Lynn, who's been building wheels not only for as long as I have, because he's about my age, but also on a more regular basis, because he builds the wheels for a couple of local bike shops. So I drove over there, took the wheel, and here's the thing, for the jinx of this wheel, I got 15 minutes on my way to his house, and I realised I had the hub and spokes, and I didn't have the rim with me, so I had to come back home. Anyway, 2 attempts, and it came out like this. You get the inners in, you get 1 row of outers, and then when you come to do the last row of outers, the wheel just goes all the cock. So we gave up. So I'm going to have to get in touch with Buchanan's, find out what's going on. I don't think it's just me, because Dick couldn't get it laced up either. So that's put this video in abeyance. So it really, I'm going to have to refilm the beginning of it, because it's going to... Anyway, the thing is, I'm going to have to talk to Buchanan's and find out and possibly send the hub and the rim off to them. There's a lorry coming. There it goes. So I'm going to work on something else, and we'll come back to this. Right, well, as you can see, things have moved on. I spoke to Angel at Buchanan's, and I sent them photographs. And the photographs I sent to the front spokes, I sent a photograph with each spoke with the original one laid next to it to show the longer. And he asked me straight away, was the wheel spoked crossing 2? And I said yes. He said, okay, well, sort of by our records, we've got it as crossing 3, so that's why the spokes are longer. So I laced it up crossing 3, and it went together. I also sent him a picture of the back wheel, as you saw it, and he reckons we were going the wrong way with the spokes on the brake drum side. Now I'm still a bit dubious of this, because when it wouldn't go together one way, I'm sure we tried swapping them round, so we'll see. Anyway, let me true this one up, and then we'll go to the back wheel. Now I built up and trued the rear wheel. You know, the spokes were really nice. You can see they're great quality, but what I can't understand is why they changed the spec that Kawasaki produced. I mean, it was annoying that they made these to cross over 3 spokes. So at first instance you think, oh God, they're the wrong length, which I did. But the rear spokes were the right length, again as with them always, the head angle was perfect, but they made them out of a heavier gauge. So I had to set to and drill out all 36 holes on the hub. And I think that was the problem, because, you know, when you're setting all this up, you've got to have a certain amount of room for these to align themselves. Well, they were so tight in here that they wouldn't move. So, you know, you were thinking, oh God, it won't point at the hole. But what it was it couldn't move to point at the hole. Anyway, cut a long story short, got it built, got it trued, I've put it in, I've got a straight edge on the sprocket, so I've got the chain line right. And as you can see here, I've actually put 2 pieces of tube. This is chrome moly tube, so it comes with, it's like a couple of thou difference in 6 feet length. So the rear rim is 3¼ inches wide. This rim is 2¼ so that's 1 inch difference, so there should be a ½ inch gap on either side. This is set to a ½ inch, and we're just right. Oh, you've got to, let me walk around. It's got to be the same front and back because the wheel could be kinked like that. There we go. Perfect. So we know the wheels are in line, we know the chain line's right, so all our measurements were correct. How about that? That's pleasing. Right, let's go around the back wheel. There's another job to do. Just to confuse you more, we're not going to the back wheel yet. While we've got the wheel in, we've got a couple of measurements to make. There are two caps, two spacing pieces, which go in between the wheel and the swinging arm on each side. This one goes on to the sprocket side, and actually this part is a sleeve that goes inside the bearing, and the bearing presses up against that. So what we need to know, we'll measure on here, is from that shoulder to there, and then on the bike we'll measure between the swinging arm and the bearing that this shoulder is going to press up against. This one is slightly different because that doesn't press up against the bearing. That presses up against the inside. Hang on, can you see this? Yeah. The inside of the brake plate. So that goes in like that, and then that there presses onto the bearing. So we got a little bit of cleverer measuring to do. Actually, I guess we would have been better off having this in there, and then I could have measured from that surface there. See, that little rubber thing goes over that lip there to seal it all up. Let's go and do this side first anyway. So this is the distance we're going to measure here, from there to the bearing face, and it's less than ½ an inch because I just can't get those calipers in, so we'll have to use these, and fortunately I can be right on the edge, so we should be accurate enough. No, I can't get these in either. Well, no, then they're catching on this. This is larger. Bugger. Hold on a second. All right, we'll try again. What we're going to do, I'm going to put that to there. Oh, everything is against me today, look. That touching the bearing. We'll make a mark there. And then let's see if it's something nice on the ruler, or are we going to have to actually measure it. So let's see. It's actually 3/8 of an inch. Well, maybe is this fractionally more than 3/8? Let's get to this scale that I can't even read. 30 seconds. Okay, it is. Let's do it this way, and then we're actually going with the way the numbers go. It is 22 30 seconds. Let me write that down. Now this one, we're going to have to be clever because we've got to measure it in a couple of stages. You see, that lip is below that one. So what I'm going to do is measure from there to there, which I can do easily. Then I'll put a straight edge across, measure from there to there, and measure from there to the bottom. And then if I deduct that measurement from there to the bottom, then it's going to be from there to the bottom. So let me do that. So there's our measurements. Total height of this thing is 1 3/8 inches, and from the top of there to the bearing surface is 1/2 inch. So from here to the bearing surface is 1 3/8 inches less 1/2 inch, which is 7/8 of an inch. Now then, the other was 22/32, which is 11/16. Okay, 11/16. So if we make that 16th, that's 14/16. Minus 11/16 equals 3/16. So we've got to take 3/16 off this, and I think we're just fortunate there. Where's my ruler? That there's enough meat there. Oh yeah, look. That's 3/8. So I can take 3/16 off that, and that should do that. So let's set the lathe up and do that. Nearly done it again. Look, when I was measuring that, where are we? I was looking at the numbers upside down. It's not 21, that's 12. So it's 13/16. Not 22, or 13/32 rather. Let me work this out again. Glad I caught that. At least we would have erred on the long side. So now we want this to be 7/8 long, which is 28/32. The gap we've got is actually 13/32. So 28/32 less 13/32 is 15/32. And this thing here is only 12/32, so we're going to have to go back into there. So if you're all working that out, I'll work it out again before I go to the lathe, just to make sure. I'll check all my measurements. Now and there's the piece with that outer part turned off. Faced off, I suppose I should do. Get my terminology correct. That goes in there like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put the brake plate on so that we get this up against the bearing. And that's going to go on there. There like that. So put that there. And all importantly, check our chain line, make sure we've got it right. Yep, that's still spot on. Perfect. So now we can measure this other side. So let's have a look at that. Now we will measure. When I find my ruler, where is it? There it is. We'll measure this distance here. Which is 5/16. That wobbles very slightly, so actually it might be back to our old 30 here. It's measuring to 22, 23 off 32 is 9. So it's 9/32. So what we have to measure here, that goes into the brake plate. So that goes up against the brake plate. So we measured from this face here to there, and as you can see it's a lot more than 9/32. It is, in actual fact, (24/32). Actually, I think I'll get a caliper to do that. With such a close measurement as this, I didn't want the ruler being at an angle. So let's see what we've got. So from there to there is 7/65. See, yeah, you see it's not the same all the way around. 7/68, 768. Let's make sure these are zeroing out. Oh. $771, yeah, there's that 3. 769. 768.5. 774. 770. Okay, so we'll say 770. 0.770, and where did we say that gap was? 9/30 seconds. I can look this up on the chart, but there's 9/30 seconds, 268. Whoa, so we've got a lot to take off. I'll check what 9/30 seconds are, and then I'll go and put this in the lathe. And there's that faced off, and we just had enough left that the little thing that the rubber seal goes on is there. So comes out of there. Goes in there, and hopefully that maybe that rubber thing doesn't fit, but never mind, that's the least of our worries. Hey, that's not too shabby, is it? Okay, and we should still be spot on with this because of course we had the spacer in this side. There we go. Right, I can put some tyres on now. Well, there you go then. We've got wheels and tyres. But not without a final struggle. I went to get the tyres warmed up, and the propane heater thing that I use to warm them up in the winter, the blooming blow pump fan motor went. So it's not what you know, it's who you know. So this morning I went round to my friend Mike's, who runs a trial shop and who is an absolute whiz with tyres, and we warmed them up and put them on there. So there we go. This, what is it? Part 10 is really finished. So off you go and enjoy yourselves.